Every grandmother carries a lifetime inside her. The triumphs nobody witnessed, the heartbreaks she outlasted, the wisdom she never got to pass on until now. Welcome to Grands Speak. Each week, Rhonda and Cherry sit down with another grandmother to dig into her life, the love, the lessons, the laughter, and everything in between, because the best stories come from the women who've truly lived them. This is Grands Speak. Welcome in. The conversation starts now.
Well, hello.
Good morning. Oh, that's not morning.
Well, what
it's
is
afternoon.
It's afternoon.
It
I don't
is.
know. What do I know?
Depends on where you're watching
It's
it from.
gloomy, so it may as well be any time of the day
That's
because
true.
it's crap outside. So I'm Rhonda, also known as Sweet Mama.
And I'm Cherry, also known as Grandma.
And today we have our first guest ever. And her name is Carol. And Carol is with us because we find her, Cherry and I find her fascinating. She has quite some stories to tell. I hope we might, I don't know how many we're going to have to do for her because she has lived a very full and awesome life. And so we want to share that with you. We want her, actually, to share that with us. So, Carol, tell us a little bit about you, just to get us to know you.
Thank you for inviting me. I am currently the founder and publisher of Inkling News, which includes Manchester Inkling and Nashville Inkling. It's hyper-local daily online news, as we call it. Been doing that about 12 years. And prior to that, I was freelancing and doing a multitude of other things. And prior to that, I worked for the union leader for about 8 years. And prior to that, I lived in Pennsylvania and had a whole different life before I came here. And prior to that, I was a teen mom. And prior to that, I had no idea what life was going to hold for me. But here I am all these years later, experiencing, I think, the journey that, I think that's the thing about life, right? Like, we think at some point in our life we know what we're going to do, we know where we're going to be, we know kind of what life's going to look like, but it's never quite what we think it's going to be, and that's neither good nor bad. It's just the journey, I guess.
There was some article, it was a long time ago, it said you will have 6 careers in your life on average. It's like, I'm going to do what now?
Yeah.
But it's really true.
Yeah, it's true. You reinvent yourself, and I've certainly done that a few times. And who knows, maybe there's another iteration down the road, who knows, but for now this is where I'm at. And
you got kids?
I got kids.
Okay.
Got 4 kids.
4
kids. They range in age from 49 to 32, and they're all over the place. My oldest lives in Pennsylvania. My second is a son. My oldest is a daughter. My son is a teacher in New York City. My third lives in Manchester and just got married last year. And then my youngest, Jules, has been living in Jakarta for the last couple of years, but she'll be coming home in a couple of months. So.
Oh, how exciting! How long has she been there?
She's been there, I think, since December of 23.
Oh wow!
So,
oh wow!
Has she gotten home at all during the day?
she's been home a couple times to visit, but this time it sounds like it's permanent home. So.
That's nice.
And I believe you have a husband because you talk about him
Yes.
in your little publisher's corner.
Yes, I have a husband. His name is Jim. That's a story in and of itself, but we've been married since 1979. So however many years that is, it's a lot of years.
It's a lot, and too many. We'd have to math.
Yeah, we'd have to math, and he's got time for that. But
nobody wants to math.
yeah, if he were here, he would tell the story of how he spotted me at the 8th grade dance. I was in the bleachers.
Aww.
He thought I was sad, which I might have been, but nothing too exciting, just like the typical 13-year-old girl at a dance kind of thing.
Right.
And he says he came over and asked me if he could help me, and I said no, and then he walked away. But he said I imprinted on his brain, and he didn't know who I was, but he was determined to to have me in some of his classes in the ninth grade or at some point, and then
My goodness, he was smitten from the get-go.
yeah, and there's a lot of chapters in between, but eventually we did get together. So here we are.
Were you less smitten than him?
Well, that's where the complication comes in, because his best friend and he had made like a bet of some sort that he was going to ask me out first or something like that.
Jeez,
And
Louises.
the friend did, so I was dating the friend for a while, and then that fizzled out, but I ended up to be expecting. So Jim heard we broke up and came to my window, and he said, hey, do you want to go to the prom? And I said, no, I can't really. I don't think that's a good idea, because I'll leave. And he said, well, then how about, you want to marry me? And I was like,
Oh,
probably not also
My
going to happen right away,
goodness.
because we're 16 and all that. But
Yeah.
he was very persistent, and he said, I prayed about this, for a long time, and I really believe that this is what's supposed to happen. So
I love that.
That's a
Wow,
great
what a neat
story.
guy.
yeah,
Yeah.
so here we are still.
Real keeper.
Yeah,
Holy,
he's a
he's a
Real
keeper.
Yeah.
There aren't a lot of them.
And I think it might
except the ones
last.
we raised.
What do you think?
I think we're gonna make it.
You're gonna make
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, I think we're gonna make it to whatever the end is. But
Yeah, right.
Oh
Hopefully
my gosh, that's
long time.
adorable.
yeah.
Yeah.
And if you were here, he would take an hour to tell the story.
Yeah.
Sorry, hon. But yeah. he likes
Well, we
to-
might have to have him on so
Oh,
he
boy.
can give us the whole.
Oh yeah, he's
the
got
whole thing.
he's got a lot of.
Maybe
twists
it's
and
a
turns.
made-for-TV movie.
Maybe
or
so.
something.
I don't know if it's that exciting. But yeah, so that was the beginning of us, and we were a couple of dumb teenagers, really didn't know what we were doing, but we got married at 19, had our second child 9 months later. So that's another story for another time. But anyway, that was Neil. He came along, and we had him in like a birthing center, when that was kind of a new
Yep.
idea.
New thing,
So my
yeah.
mother-in-law was there. She'd had already 8 children of her own and never really experienced a birth, so she got to finally see how it all.
Right, because they would
Happens.
knock you out.
Right.
Like you
Yeah.
didn't even experience
Yeah.
your own babies
Right.
being born.
So she was there. My father-in-law was there. My sister was there.
Wow.
Yeah, it was kind of neat. And Jim, of course, was there, and a photographer was there because it was the first birth happening at this center.
Oh,
So the photographer
neat.
reached out to the doctor, and
Yeah.
she said, like, I'm hoping to just, film a birth. So they asked me, would I mind if some stranger with a camera
Oh.
was in there, and I'm like, yeah, sure, what the heck.
yeah, because you were young. What do
Yeah,
you know?
right,
so-
exactly.
She
the
took
more
a
the
bunch
merrier.
of beautiful black and white photos, which I still have, and,
Oh my
and
gosh.
one of there's some amazing photos that you would never have known, but one of the first photos is my son is laying on my lap, and he's holding my finger and looking like right in my eyes, not
Yeah.
crying or
It's
just
like-
very like,
Like
oh,
that's what you
nice
look
to meet
like.
you. Yeah,
Like
yeah.
such a moment.
Yeah.
really beautiful moment. So
Wow.
yeah, so that was
And professionally done.
yes.
But at a time when you didn't do that.
No,
much.
so it was just one of those happy
Wonderful.
accidents of my life that if you string them all together, that's my life, pretty
Yeah.
much. Happy accidents. But
Happy accidents. I
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
I like that. That might even be the title of this podcast.
So
Yeah.
happy accidents. Well,
accidents.
pretty much.
That's a good one.
I would
Yeah.
say that's pretty much what
Yeah.
it
So
boiled down to.
you probably have an idea of what you'd like to share with us today. We want to get to know you in whatever capacity you're willing to give us.
Yeah, I mean, at this stage of life when we get to whatever stage you want to call it, but you're sort of looking back at the years of your life that you were, productive, I guess. Not that we're not productive, but
Right.
you're producing children, you're
Right.
you're hustling, to make
Right.
ends meet. You're trying to figure out what your purpose is, or everybody. Nowadays I'm always so struck when you see young people in a moment of, solemnness say like, I know I have a greater purpose here. Yeah, I guess we all kind of do, but it is what it is.
It's more like happy accidents.
It's kind of like that. It's not like some, divine intervention purpose. It's more like you have to find your, we've been watching some Joseph Campbell on,
Oh, okay.
so
Yeah.
he talks about finding your bliss, and I think even that is a little bit like, not everybody can do that, you know, when you're in the thick of things. But in fact, I was thinking, well, what is my bliss? I'm not really sure what my bliss is. But so anyway, at this stage of life, I think I'm just trying to figure out how to tie it all up.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
you read those stories about the Swedish death cleaning, which isn't, you know, fatalistic, but it's sort of like strip away the things that really don't matter, the things you've been holding on to for whatever reason, and kind of like pass them on or redistribute them and give them other homes, and then, you know, sort of clear the way for yourself to just experience life
Interesting.
in a way that you haven't had the chance or the time to, you know.
Oh, you've been so cluttered up.
Yeah, I mean, when you have kids, sometimes, you know, they leave home, but they leave a lot of stuff, and then you don't want to get rid of it because it's like, what if they really want this? But then
Yes.
it's like, okay, it's been 20 years, perhaps they don't want it.
They won't want
They
it
won't want it
until you
until
get
you
rid
get
of
rid
it.
of it.
Until you get rid of it.
That's
That's
absolutely.
right.
Even if they looked you in the eye and said,
I don't care about that.
yeah,
Wait, you
Jeremy,
threw away that?
yeah, Jeremy, do you want that twin bed thing that we had, the bunk bed that you had, that you loved? Do you want that for your son? Oh yeah, Mom, you got room to keep that, right? Right? Sure, honey.
Yeah,
So
no
it's like
problem.
take it through 3 apartments and into another house.
Carry it on your back,
Yeah.
probably.
And then say,
Literally.
then when he finally has a son, you know, who's now old enough to be out of his crib, say to him, listen, you want us to bring that over?
Let us get
I
this.
don't want that.
Yeah, why would
I don't want that. We have a perfectly good bed. It makes into a youth bed from his crib. Okay.
Hey, I'm
Great.
so
I'm just
grateful.
gonna
Yes.
put it on your
Like,
front lawn and
kept
set it
them.
on fire.
Yes.
Yes. Exactly.
Yeah. But so yeah. So anyway, I mean, I look back at it all, and I think of all the, you know, there were many adventures. Of course, I had 4 kids, and they were in batches, I guess. So the first 2, I tell people I had one in the 70s, one in the 80s, and then 2 in the 90s. And I was thinking, should I go for the
Woo!
whatever that
The
would
new
be?
millennium.
But I didn't. But
Yeah.
you know, they're spread across 18 years. So the first 2 kind of came up together, and then there was a bit of a gap, and then the second 2. And so all of that means, as a parent, you have to kind of, like, you know, the excitement of the first tooth, the first Christmas, the first steps, the
Yes,
first
yeah.
word. You do that a couple times, and then you take a break from, and then you're back to it again. You're like, okay.
How do I do this?
Very exciting.
Let me muster
First
this.
Yeah,
word.
let me get
First
excited
steps,
about
first
this.
word.
And that's not to say it wasn't exciting the second time around, but it's also like, it's a lot, you know. It's because at the same time I had some teenagers brewing, you know, so it was like
Yeah.
you're in the thick of that too.
Sure,
And then
sure.
when I started writing a column in like 1994 when my baby was born, my last baby, my baby, and the premise of that was really just, I mean, how it started was I'd gotten a job at the local paper, figuring, you know, I wanted to get a job of some sort now that I've been a young mother. So I finally got to college, and I got my foot in the door doing some part-time work, and then the new publisher had a party at his house, a Christmas party. So we're all in there, and he's playing his music, and everybody's like sort of, you know, dancing around and looking around at the guy's house trying to figure him out. And he had a book on the mantle called Diary of a Whacked Out Bitch.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
There you go.
So I picked it up, and I'm like,
Okay.
oh, Diary of a Whacked Out Bitch, that sounds
Yeah,
amazing.
right.
I'm feeling
He
like that.
dances over and he says, hey, great book, you should borrow it. And I was like, okay. So I took it home because he sort of instructed me to borrow it. But at that point in my life, I was not a big reader. Never really been a big reader, crazy, you know, strangely enough. But I felt like really compelled, like that I should be reading this book. However, I never got around to it right away. I finally read the book I locked myself like in the bathroom. My kids,
Oh, yeah,
are
those
banging
days,
at the
yeah.
door, but I'm reading this book just to get it done. And then I wrote a little book report in a sort of I think, a funny way, reflecting on how I could relate. And I put the book report in the book and I put it on his desk. He came out of his office. He said, "That was fantastic." He said, "How would you like to write a column?" And I said,
Wow.
"Okay." So that happy
That's
accident. I wasn't
Yeah,
really
very
trying
So
to
did
get
you go to school for journalism?
Yeah, I did.
You did?
Yeah, I did. I was.
So,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
And how old were you when you went back to college? Like when you said, okay, college.
Yeah. I was. I believe I was like 31,
Okay.
and then, if is that right? It was somewhere in there, because by the time I was a senior in college, I was pregnant again. It's my modus
Okay.
operandi.
Yeah.
Senior in high school, senior in college.
Let's go.
That's why I didn't go to grad school.
Yeah.
But
nope.
yeah. So I was going to college, and one of my professors said, like, if you want to get a job at a newspaper, just go down there and apply for anything. Sweep the floors, whatever you have to do, get your foot in the door. So I did that. I got my foot in the door, and then that's kind of how it all came together. I finally got a job in the newsroom after a little while, and then just around the time I was having my fourth child, there was a full-time opening that they were sort of looking at me for. So that's when I went on maternity leave, and then I came back, and it was my first full-time job in the news business.
That's very
yeah.
cool.
Yeah. So that was that. But it was
that was in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, that was in Pennsylvania,
Okay.
the Bucks County Courier Times, for all
Okay.
my south of Philly friends or whatever.
Yeah.
And I worked there from like 1991 to just about 2001, when I came here to New Hampshire.
And what brought you to New Hampshire?
Oh, just more happy accidents, I guess. So I really enjoyed what I did there. I had a youth teen section. Kids came from all around and wrote about stuff. A lot of them, after that, going on to some really important careers in the world. And I wrote the column, I wrote feature stories, but I kind of reached the pinnacle of what I could earn.
Mhm.
And my husband was like, you're the college graduate, maybe you could make more money someplace else. So I started looking around and found that the union leader was hiring. Now, I wasn't that familiar with the union leader. I think I mentioned to you before, I was not
Yes.
ever really a big news hound,
Yeah.
but my husband was aware of it, so he's like, "Yeah, it's a good paper, go." So, I applied for the job, came up, didn't get hired in March of 2001. It was an education job, and that's really what I wanted to do. And then they offered me like a nighttime general assignment job, and I said, no, I don't really want to work at night, I got kids. Then 6 months later, right after 9/11 happened, they reached back to me. So in this business, there's usually like zero chance that someone's going to call you and say,
Right.
come work for us.
Right.
That's just not heard of anymore. But I think there were some unique situations that were going on there. And then, of course, with 9/11, Jim and I kind of looked at each other, and we were sort of like, the world just blew up a little bit. Like,
Yeah.
maybe we should try something different. We've
Right.
been here our whole lives. So we decided to go that November. It was right around like the day, I started like the day before my 42nd birthday. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
So,
So really kind of finding your way in your career later than some.
oh yeah.
Definitely.
I hadn't really thought about, when I was in high school, I thought I might travel the world and be like an international woman of mystery teacher maybe, or something like that. I was on the school newspaper, so there was always that idea, but I was always more interested in people,
Mhm.
telling people stories. I thought about social work, and even in college when I first started going, I was taking sociology classes and really, feeling connected to all of that. But I ended up winning a college-wide writing contest, and it was the first time the sociology department ever won. So the professor said, like, this is great. And then he's like, you know, maybe you should think about journalism
You're
instead
a little
of
wasted
sociology.
here, yeah.
Good job, but, you know, get out of here.
Case reports probably isn't the
Yeah,
thing,
so,
yeah.
and so I think in some ways I've approached journalism from a sociological point of view, if you will, kind
Yeah.
of looking at people and what makes us think and do the things we do, and telling the sort of the rest of the stories as I can.
And we talked about that, right, when we met with you the first time. Your news isn't breaking news. There's a fire, there's a robbery, there's a this. It's more like what really connects the community together.
Yeah, and that's the goal. I mean, we do, you know, you will find occasional bad guy stories or you know, something of community importance, but I'm just always trying to figure out the balance, what people want, what I can contribute, what the people writing for me can bring to the party, so to speak, and I celebrate, I think it goes back to being a youth editor, I celebrate the idea of people, like readers, who feel like they want to contribute, you know, they reach out, hey, would you be interested in this? And I always say, yes, of course I would.
Yeah.
So I want to get those community voices in the mix, because ultimately I would like the Inkling to feel like, I would like people to feel like it belongs to them.
Right.
I'm not some corporate entity feeding you the news every day. I want people to take ownership of the Inkling and say, like, this is our publication. We can find ourselves in here, or we can read about things that are relevant to us, not because somebody told us it was important, but because it's a place where we can come together and connect.
I love that.
So yeah,
I love
so
that.
that's kind of the.
So tell us a little bit then how you got from the union leader and what you did there to starting Inkling.
Yeah.
So now you're a little later in your life, starting your career.
Yes,
You got the
The
job.
hot flashes hadn't started yet, but I was still, you know, kind of relevant, I guess, as a human being, you know. I say that jokingly, but I
Yeah.
think you feel like at some point,
Yes.
maybe within a decade of that, by 50 or 52, you must feel invisible sometimes to, you know, when you go into a room, or when you know, I think that sometimes if I had been a guy at that stage of my career, with all the, I came there as an award-winning journalist from Pennsylvania. I had many you know, as an enterprise writer, I could write just about anything, and the column that I wrote, and I, you know, had a teen section that had been running for like 10 years, and it was all these things that I was
Yeah.
able to accomplish, and I get in the room. And they sort of, like, one example would be on election night, and at the union leader, even though I worked the night shift, you think they might send me out to cover
Yes.
an election of importance, but my job was to wait by the phone so that one of the guys from the day shift, who they called in to work the night shift, because I probably wasn't capable of writing about politics, I would answer the phone and take their dictation or their quotes. That was part of my job, to be waiting for the guys. And
We talked about that this
I would rewrite or proofread the obituaries sometimes. I would go do the cop calls, which is like calling every cop in the state of New Hampshire to find if there's any news. And I did get to write stories sometimes. But it wasn't until I'd been there a few years that the night editors realized, like, if they didn't have much happening, when I got in at 5:30, they could call me over and say, hey, we need something really great for the front page. Go get something. So I'd go out and I'd find something,
Yeah.
and it take the pictures, and it would end up on the front page. So, and then, yeah, so that was.
So it's more like you're not the higher ups that make the decisions, but your colleagues kind of recognize.
Well, the people that really do the work. Let's
The
put it
people
that
that
way.
do the work.
But I don't mean this to sound like
Right.
I'm not being egotistical here, but I'm just saying I have a particular skill set, you know, when I arrive, and it's pretty much like I can do anything you need me to do.
Right.
If I don't know how to do it, I'll figure it out, because I'm a writer. That's what we do, and I know about reporting and all that stuff. But somehow the value system, it seemed at the time that the union leader was really just kind of like not to say an old boys network, but in a way, it was, it was all men at the time that I got there, one woman, but the higher ups, the editorial staff, and the reporters for the most part were men, and I pitched plenty of things like, let me write a column, women are the decision makers, I can help, get more women engaged in what you're doing here, and they were like, thanks, but no thanks, we'll stick with
And
it.
it isn't egotistical. I just want to,
Yeah.
absolutely not. You do have skill sets. You are talented. You were recognized. You were honored.
Yeah.
And still, the people didn't give you what you're due in a way, right?
Well,
And I think it's important. The reason, part of the reason for doing this is we are going back into a time, it seems, in some ways, where the road is being narrowed for women again. And our young women need to know, well, how am I supposed to navigate this if just having babies and staying home isn't all I want to do with my life?
Yeah.
And so having you here, having traveled this road in the last millennium, which is a dadgum shame we have to say it like that, but it's true, decades ago. And then they're coming back to it and going, well, wait a minute, this is what I'm noticing. I don't think I'm being egotistical, but nobody is really recognizing all that I bring to the table. And so it's important for them to hear your voice and to know that they're not making it up, they're not hallucinating, it's really happening in their experience, because it's harder to identify if it's not being pointed out by someone else. You're like, wait a minute, was I really passed over? Or maybe I'm just not measuring up, whatever it is that comes about.
Yeah, and I think in the industry itself, like now I see a lot more women and young women, which is great to see. But at the time, I had an excellent editor at the Union Leader who kept applying for the next level and kept not getting it, and I'm not sure why, because she was like the glue that held everything together. But I think they liked to keep her in the place she was to do the function that she was doing, rather than what I like to do, which is elevate people or help them, to and maybe that's the maternal way or something of like looking at things. Men are being like they're in a sporting event and they just want to win stuff, and women are sort of like trying to, cooperative and nurturing and
Let me help you with this.
Well, and also they are lifting others up, kind of, but dragging them along behind. But it's not people that look like you.
I think we should share with her that this is phenomenon will happen again when you become a grandmother. Even though you've raised 4 children quite successfully, and the first time you go to help with the baby, right? And I almost died because we learned to put our babies on their bellies, right?
Yes.
You keep them alive by putting them on your bellies.
Yeah.
Well, now they put them on their back. First time I saw my grandson in his bassinet and his back, I'm going, pick him up, he shouldn't be on his back.
Did he have a flat head and no hair?
So bad that he had to wear, eventually when he got to be like 1 year old, they had to put a little helmet on him to start.
Yeah, that's where I need to dig into that before a grandchild arrives, because I don't like them on their backs. I don't know. I guess, what's the theory of the stomach that they're gonna like throw up and put their face in it?
They'll suffocate.
But if
That's
they're on
what
their
it
back and they try to throw up, how's that any better?
Yeah.
And
I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't
to
know
me,
either.
yeah.
I raised 2 successfully, did not kill
Yeah.
them.
I know.
So, I'm just saying.
Well,
2,
even this
4 more.
Here we're going to get into the whole radical 70s, but I breastfed all my kids, right? And I was like a big proponent of that, like until they could pretty much, make their own breakfast or something. And we had the family bed that there's a book called The Family Bed, so we tried that, which was easy when you're breastfeeding, and
especially with the 2.
Yeah,
you can cuddle one and feed the other one.
People will say like, oh, that's terrible. You could like roll over on them and suffocate them. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure that doesn't happen. But like in every other country in the
Yes.
world where they do sleep with their children. Like, I don't think that's a big widespread problem. One reason is because usually you're cradling them somehow, so you're not gonna
Exactly.
fully
that
roll.
way.
I don't know. People
You're
have,
aware of them.
but anyway,
You
I
really are.
said it just seems odd that you carry a baby inside of you in a warm, closed, close place where they can hear you and smell you and see you. Then they are born, and then you put them in a big wooden box in another room and shut the door
Yeah.
and say, "There, I have a baby," and they're happy.
Yeah.
Oh, they're crying. They'll cry it out. They'll learn.
Oh.
And I always said what they learn is that when they need something, and the only way they can express it is by crying, nobody hears them.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's true.
Yeah.
But those were my
Yeah.
philosophies.
Yeah.
And when I had 2 more kids sometime later, I found that I didn't really change the way I did it. I had the opportunity to try a new approach. But that's the other thing, like, you have to do what feels right for you as a mother.
Absolutely.
You.
My
That's
way
exactly
isn't
right.
everybody's way, but it's going to be hard to watch someone
And I
else.
think, I don't know if it was the same for you, but I was a very young mom, right? And so I spent a lot of that first of all, going, I can't believe they gave me a kid, but whatever. But listening to the experts,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, yeah.
And the authority figures, and not just following my own gut and doing what I knew was right for that baby. And the second one, that wasn't really the case because it was 10 years later for me. But, you know, and there's so many times that when I look back, I'm like, oh, I just wish if I could do it over, I would not listen. And I would say, no, this isn't right for him.
Yeah.
And you do have to, I do think it's important, even though, you know, then the daughters and the daughter-in-laws come along and they don't want to hear anything you have to say. And it's a little bit of this and a little bit of that, but they do have to do it their way.
Yeah, and there's like always new approaches or philosophies.
Correct.
One of my neighbors, like probably 15, 20 years ago, she was younger and she had started having babies, and she was telling me about this way of getting them on a schedule so that they don't wake up at night. A very, very specific way of doing things, and it was fascinating, and I think it worked on some level, but in the end, I don't know if it was any better or made a positive difference in that child's how they developed later. Like, it's just, maybe it's convenient for you as a parent to put them on a schedule because that's how you live your life, and if so, that's fine.
It teaches them the family
But
way,
they're going to
maybe.
be part of
Yeah.
your family, so
Yeah.
Yeah.
they're
always going to have to put up with you and your schedule.
so whatever you decide. My best advice to people all the time was just think it through before you have children, so that you're on the same page as your spouse, because there's nothing worse than getting into the thick of it and then finding out you have completely different ideas about
Right.
everything, and then everything becomes sort of a battle with
And chaos.
chaos. But it's like,
Yeah.
the things that really break couples up is money problems, sex, like disagreements about that, and then how you're raising your kids. Those are the big 3, I think. Parenting. So just think it through. Like, talk about scenarios. I say, like, make a game of it some night. Put a bunch of scenarios in a hat, and pull them out and say, so what if our kid did this? What do we do?
Carol, that sounds like a book.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I know, but,
Huh.
but I just think there's ways to think. I don't know why we don't think about that. Like, as human beings, like, if we're going to be parents, like, should we be prepared in some way for not just
No
the practical?
preparation.
What people get prepared about is the money. Are we going to be
Yes.
able to afford daycare? Are we going to be able to afford diapers or formula or preschool or private school? Like, those are the matters that people worry about, not the, are we do we have a religion? Like, you were a Catholic and I was a nothing. Do we care? Like, are we going to have, Easter Bunny, like what do we do? Like what are the philosophical aspects of, are we gonna do spanking if you're bad, or time out, or shaming them, or whatever people decide to do with their kids? It's like let's have a plan for that, because it's important, and I think people just don't think about some of that stuff so much. And same with marriage. I think around the time I got laid off from the union leader, I was thinking, okay, another happy accident story. Like, so in Pennsylvania, I was writing a column there, and I got a solicitation in my email. This was in the 90s at some point, that said I could become an ordained minister. It was just like $30. So I asked my editor, could I do it and write about it? It says I can do weddings, funerals, baptisms. She said, yeah, go ahead. So she gave me the $30. I sent it in. I became a Universal Life Church minister, ordained online, and I wrote about it. And that was the end of that, until we moved here. And then we met a couple who, they both were previously married. They were thinking about getting married, and my husband said, well, don't worry. When you're ready, she's an ordained minister. And I said, no, wait a minute. I do have a certificate somewhere, but I don't know if it's real. And they said, well, we hardly care about that. We want you to do the wedding. So I panicked a little. I looked it up. Turned out you could perform a wedding as a Universal Life Church minister. So I did. They got married at Fisher Cat's, the Hilton behind Fisher Cat Stadium, and they had the reception out there. And after the wedding, another person came up to me and said, that was amazing. Can you do my wedding? And I was like, oh my gosh. I said, I'm just a Universal Life Church minister, and I'm not even sure if that's a thing. So she said, well, we don't care. So I did a second wedding as a Universal Life Church minister. But then I said, in New Hampshire, it's pretty easy to do that. You just become a JP, and you just pay money and get 3 other JPs to say you're not like a criminal. And that's pretty much how it goes. Like in Pennsylvania, you have to be elected to be a JP. So here in New Hampshire, it's kind of easy peasy, right?
Live free or die.
Live free or die. So around 2008 or 2009, I became a justice of the peace, and I'm still. I kept renewing it like reluctantly, because every once in a while, I'd be like, I'm gonna stop being a JP, and then somebody would ask, like, could you do a wedding? And I was like, okay, I'll do a wedding.
Do you do any funerals or memorial services? Or
I have done a couple. My next door neighbor, Patty, passed away, and it was terrible. I was right there when she passed away. She was dying, like cancer, hospice situation. I happened to be there at that moment. And then right after she died, and then they came in, and then her husband said, could you do a service for her? It's like, yeah, sure I can,
Yeah.
So I was at the funeral home someplace downtown Manchester, and I did the eulogy, so I just like gathered some information. Yeah. I've done it, but it was like, it was sort of like, it wasn't really my intention to do that, but after all these years of doing it, I approach each one like, some JPs have like a template, fill in the blank, like Mad Libs or something,
Right.
But for me, I interview the couple, I give them a questionnaire, and then I sort of write their story. And so when you do the wedding, you kind of surprise them a little bit with personalization. Because they each have to give me answers about the same things, but they don't know what the other person has said, so then it becomes sort of a interesting
for them as
journey
well.
for them as well.
As
yeah,
well.
They're surprised at some of the things that they're
discovery.
Discovery. So I've done that, and I always thought like maybe there was a book up in there somewhere about if I could go back and talk to all those people now. I guess if it's been almost 20 years, like how many of them are still together? I said I hope I have like 100% success rate. I'm not sure, but I'd like to find out from them, like, what did they feel going into it versus how things went. Was there anything I said that might have, resonated, that helped you get through a rough period? Because I offer a little advice, sort of, along the way as part of the ceremony.
I told you she was interesting.
In fact, like one couple got married, right? And then I was staying for the reception, which occasionally I would do because they would ask me. And what I had said in the ceremony was like, you know, some days, you know, it's you think it's 50-50, but it's not. Some days, you know, you've only got 10% to give.
Exactly.
You know, and so the other person has to be willing to understand that, you know, we sometimes we just have to let the other person ride a little bit and do what we have to do. And after the wedding, but before the reception, the bride had a little bit of a meltdown, and as she was kind of having a moment, the new husband looked at me and he said, "Yeah, I heard what you said, so I'm just going to let it go. Like, she's going to do what she needs to do, and I'm just here to support her." And I said, "That's a good
That's
thing."
good. Good job.
Perfect.
He could have been frustrated with her because she was really melting down, but he heard me, which I thought
That is
was
so cool.
yes. So
But and to get to see it so quickly.
yes,
Right.
results.
Oh,
So,
You don't get that very
yeah,
often.
you don't get that often enough.
Oh, I'm
But,
good at this.
Only washing the dishes or
Yeah.
So,
not something like that.
so, but that was partly like when I got laid off. I was like, what am I going to do now? So I was like, well, I'll get my JP
Yeah.
license and then I can do weddings, which isn't going to make anybody rich, I don't think. But then I was like, okay, I applied for a job as a professor somewhere, journalism professor. I can teach that. You know, I don't have a teaching degree, but I've got experience. Or I could do PR somewhere. But honestly, at that time, the economy was crazy, and if you weren't a teacher, it's gonna be hard to, you know, to qualify to do anything other than what I was doing. And that's how I got really on the pathway to what I'm doing now, which was a program literally called Pathway to Work through the state of New Hampshire. So they said, this was the fine print, they didn't really say it, but it said, okay, you're a woman of a certain age in an industry that's failing, like you're probably not going to find another job, so why don't you make up your own, basically.
Oh, interesting.
So I was able to, they said, like, come up with a business plan, and you don't have to apply for other jobs. You just collect your $427 unemployment check every week, and hopefully you'll figure out a business in 6 months that'll set you into a new direction. So I was gonna just do like a freelancing business, but then something in me said, maybe I should start an online news site, because that doesn't really exist here in Manchester. Like I could just be very, you know, nimble about it and
Right.
just cover the city the way I think it should be covered and do my own thing. So that's what I did. And
That
that's
is
pretty
so
much-
cool.
Yeah.
And I like the story about how it got its name, Inkling.
Yeah, so while I was still working for the Union Leader, I was covering as a correspondent the town of Derry primarily, and had been doing that a couple of years, and more than a couple of years actually, probably from like 2009 to 2008, 2009 to like 2011. It is a couple of years, but 9, 10, 11, so 3 years. Math.
You
But
did
anyway,
math then again.
I did. But after a year or so, some of the people were saying like, "Oh, can we see your story online? We want to share it with our grandma or somebody." And I'm like, "Sorry, you know, the Union Leader hasn't quite discovered the internet yet. We don't have an online presence." But you know, I'll tell you what. I'll create a link to the ink for you. I'll make a little website where I can put all the stories. And that idea kind of, when I finally made the little site, I called it Derry Inkling, and that's how Inkling kind of began to take root in my brain. I've gotten a lot of people asking for tattoos, and
Oh my goodness.
and also Manchester Inkling, so people from the UK solicit me for things, so it's broadened my international and occupational ideals.
Visibility.
And I feel like I should actually maybe work with a local tattoo place to say, "Hey, can you make me a lovely Inkling tattoo?" And then maybe we can market that, you know. I don't know, but I'm not really pro tattoos, but I would do it if somebody wanted one. But yeah, so that's really, the name just kind of stuck. And then when I decided to start something on my own, I was in conversation with somebody and I mentioned that, and they said, "Oh, I like that, Inkling. I think that's catchy. You could have anywhere Inkling." And I said, "Okay, going with it then."
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And who knows? Who goodness, because you have one now in Nashua. And you were telling us about the, I guess, intern kind of person that's helping you with that, the young woman?
Well, she's a full-time, she's.
Did she start full-time?
Yep, she
Yeah,
started
she
full-time.
did.
We hired her full-time. She was,
Okay.
looking for a full-time job, and she had asked about an internship.
Oh, she had asked
and I
about
didn't have that
Okay.
capacity
Yeah.
at the time, so she got a job at the Hippo, and she was just doing some Hippo stuff, which is a weekly publication. She kept reaching back to see if I still didn't have a job, and right around the end of 2023, through the Granite State News Collaborative, which is a statewide network of publications, we were gonna see if we could launch something in Nashville. So I said I would give that a whirl, and I know somebody that might be a great reporter for that. So I reached back to Maya and I said, any chance you might want to start this job? And she said yes. So it's pretty easy.
Yeah.
And like everything in my world is, it feels like things do just kind of fall into place without a lot of, sometimes even when I don't try, or when I'm actually thinking like, I don't think I want to do that, but then it's like all the roadblocks disappear and I have no choice. I have to keep forging ahead.
So do you think that, I'm just curious, do you think that part of the reason that happens that way for you is because you are so collaborative, you are so in a more cooperative kind of way, looking around and going, well, who's around me, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I don't like to sound so cosmic about it, but I do feel like, when you're tuned in to life in a certain way, like I'm very open to life. I'm very open to possibilities, and I sound so corny, but you know, I kind of do lead with my heart and my instinct about things and my sense of things. I have, it's not intuition, but it's like I just go with my gut sometimes, or I say like, I think that's the right thing to do, and the right thing to do is what usually guides my everything. And even if it means a detour here or a detour there because there's somebody along the way that needs something, you know, I'll put other things aside to put people first, I guess. And I feel like that gets rewarded somehow,
Right.
if there's such a thing in the universe. I mean, I can't really explain it any other way, but it's like you're moving in a certain plane and you find people within that same plane that get you, and they're there, like just when you don't know what you're gonna do next, someone just sort of drifts into your life and it's like, oh, that's amazing. And maybe they don't stay forever, but they get you to the next level or something. I don't know. I don't know if that's...
I don't know either. And we're not meant to know,
No,
right?
we're not meant to know, I don't think, but there's a lot of...
That's not how it works.
Yeah.
Do you ever feel like when you look back on your own life, wow, I've been so lucky?
All the time.
Just,
Yeah.
It's,
I'm so thankful for everything, and I think of all the people I've met, written about, known in my lifetime who haven't had an easy, I mean, nobody has it easy. There's no such thing.
right.
We all
yes,
have this
yeah.
roller coaster life where just when you think the ride's over, there's another,
Smooth
They
down,
wanna do
you
the
know,
loop,
you know,
the
and mountain.
yeah.
Oh, this
And
road right to
that is what life is. It's not like that's the bad part of life. That
Right,
is
no,
just
it's just
the ride. So you just gotta strap in. But
Yep.
you know, I think really, but I think and the bar, strap in and the safety bar.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that that is part of what makes this whole thing work for me, because you can get really discouraged sometimes. But I've seen people over all these years lose their children tragically to disease or to addiction. I see people that have lost their jobs, which led to losing their homes or their cars.
Yep.
You know, I mean, nothing terrible really ever happened to me in that regard. You know, my children are all here. Our parents got to be old. You know, we have more than one house because I still have my dad's house because it's filled with art and I don't know what to do with it. So if anybody out there wants to look at some biblical art,
Okay.
hit me up. But so like we've always had at one point we had 3 houses because we moved up here. We kept the house that we had in Levittown so our older kids could have a home until they figured out what to do because we didn't give them much notice that I was moving to New Hampshire. And then a family we knew needed a home, so we let them have our home for a while till they got themselves straightened out. But then they kind of messed it up. So then it was like it just kind of was a roller coaster with that. But we finally fixed it up and sold it for much more than we paid for it in 1979. So then we were down to 2 houses. The house we have in Manchester, my dad's house, but. Through all that, you know, we both had lost our jobs and had a lot of challenges.
Sure.
4 kids to feed and raise, but somehow we're still here, and it's not luck, but it's something. Yeah. You know, I feel very fortunate, and so I always keep that in mind. You know, that if I don't start with gratitude, and if I don't acknowledge that I've been so fortunate in everything. I mean, how many 16-year-old pregnant teenagers actually, you know, go on to live their dream or something? Like, it's a hard time, but I was just an anomaly in some ways because I had a very supportive family, because I had some, you know, starry-eyed 8th grader who had his eye on me, so he was like gonna, you know, be there when I needed someone to be there, and
who also turned out to be the love of your life.
Yeah, I mean, sure.
Which is unusual.
Well, the thing was,
itself.
before all that happened, you know, not to go back so far, but I was in this relationship with this kid who was his friend, but he was not really a great boyfriend, and we didn't really have that much in common. But then Jim, who was my neighbor as well, would come by. He used to sell flowers, so he'd come by with the extra flowers, the ugly ones that he couldn't sell, but he'd bring them over. And we'd talk, and I'd write in my diary, like, oh, that Jimmy Robidoux is such a nice guy. Like, I really liked him, but I had a creepy boyfriend, but I had, you know, you know, you're young, so you don't really know what to do about all that. So it was sort of like, and so you look back at all of that, and you see, you know, the seeds of friendship were planted, or whatever you want to say, you know, and who knows, so. Yeah.
Thank you for being here today.
Yes,
this
has been so much fun.
I've counted a privilege to get to know you. Yeah. And you are an interesting person.
Yeah, I didn't even get to talk about Jacqueline Smith.
Oh, dang
Charlie's
it.
Angel.
Oh,
Okay.
You're going to have to come back.
Yeah.
You're going to have to come back for sure, but we appreciate you coming.
Thanks for having me. Feels like therapy, I guess.
Great.
I'm not sure if anything I said made sense, but that's that.
It all made sense. It all made sense, and for people that do listen because of whatever those things are that happen that bring things into your life, it's going to be right on.
Okay.
Dead on.
Well, thank you both for being good listeners.
Yeah, and that's Grant speak.
Yeah, Grant speak.
That's Grant speak.
Thank
for
you.
sure.